Honorable members, prayers. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favor upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic. Endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment, integrity, and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served, and thy good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. Amen. O God, grant us a vision of our country, fair as it might be, country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, country of brotherhood, where all success shall be found in service and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honorable members, votes and proceedings. We are reading from the corrected version and the ancient one concurrently, particularly reference to the members present. So let us know we are referring to two documents, the ancient and modern. Very well. If you don't see your name in ancient, don't hurry to say you were present and not recorded, because you may well be in the modern revised standard version. So we shall read the two together. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7. Yes.
Speaker, thank you very much. I was in the House yesterday.
Page 7.
Yes, and indeed attended the...
And don't also appear in the addition. That's why I say we are reading two docs.
Yes. It's been indicated that I was absent, but I was in the House.
In both?
Yes.
Both?
In both, yes.
If both, then it should be corrected accordingly.
Yes.
Very well.
Very well.
Table office to take note and correct.
Very well, very well.
Page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, 12, page 13, page 14, page 15, 16, page 17, page 18, 19, 20, page 21, page 22, 23, 24, 25, page 26, page 27, 28, 29, page 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 36, page 37, page 38, page 40, 41, 42, and 43. Honorable members, the votes and proceedings of 10th August as corrected are hereby admitted as true record of proceedings. Official report, 22nd July, please. Honorable members, any corrections? Official report. In the absence of any corrections, the official report is hereby admitted as true record proceedings. Members, item listed 3, questions. And if the Honorable Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources may please take the appropriate chair. Honorable Member for Southton, your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources what steps are being taken to improve on the supply of potable drinking water to the following towns: 1, Sasakope; 2, Dendo; 3, Yokiti; 4, Achieve; 5, Dokolame; and 8. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, government is committed to improving the water supply to Saskope, Dendo, Yokutiko, Acheve, and Doklame communities and their environs as a result of increased population. In an earlier submission to this August House in July 2018, it was indicated that the Ghana Company Limited had signed a contract with Mishas UEM Incorporated to rehabilitate and expand the Agodome Sugakope water treatment plant to include the extension of distribution pipelines to these communities and beyond. However, the company was unable to secure funding for the project. As part of government's continuous efforts to improve on potable water supply to these communities, I wish to announce that both cabinet and parliamentary approvals have been secured for the implementation of the phase 3 of the 5 districts water supply scheme. And that this project, Yokitiko and the environs will be connected from the distribution line from Agotapo, which is the end of the distribution network currently under the view of the project. Mr. Speaker, Cabinet and Parliament have also approved the Kita Water Supply System project. Under this project, the water supply to Agodome Sugakope water treatment plant, and which will be expanded, and this will improve supply of water to Saskope, Dendo, and communities and their environs to meet the increasing water demand in the area. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, from the answer provided by the Minister, particularly on the phase 3 of the 5 district water supply scheme, indicated that supply to Yokitiko, Doklame, and their environs will be connected from the distribution line from Agotako, Would the minister tell us when will that be starting, or when do we expect that to commence?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can announce authoritatively that sword cutting has been scheduled for this particular project, and the honourable member will be invited when the time is up, which is very soon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member. Honorable Will.
Mr. Speaker, from the last paragraph, also indicated that the Agodome treatment plant is due for expansion. And may I know when that will also start, and whether that project you consider expanding the pipeline from Agodome to Sulakope Township as a parallel line to the existing line?
Thank you very much. Minister, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This will surely be done because the honourable member has already engaged the engineers on this particular project, and his request will be done. And I humbly suggest also that if he has any inputs, our doors are open. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you again. This constituency specific. Don't tempt me. Honorable Minister, our questions are exhausted. Thank you very much for the house this morning and answering our questions. You are respectfully. Statements. Honorable Minister for Education will make a statement on education and teacher reforms. Honorable Minister.
I come under 72 to make this statement. I'm grateful for the opportunity to make mention of this government's achievement in the education sector, with particular focus on access, equity, quality, and teacher education reform. Mr. Speaker, I want to be brief so that I do appeal to you to commit the statement as read, as produced fully into the Hazard. In December 2016, Ghanaians gave the new patriotic party, led by His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, a 4-year mandate to govern this country, following the appreciation of our manifesto pledges and policies as being capable of positioning our country on a better footing for a brighter future. The MPP government quickly set to work to implement our core electoral promises in fulfillment of that sacred and solemn covenant with the people. 3.5 years on, the achievements speak for themselves and remain a blueprint for the future of this country. Ghana countries like Taiwan, Singapore, and Japan in natural and however, these countries continue to stimulate the most successful development stories, growing at significantly faster rates than Ghana, partly because they invest heavily in their citizens' education, training, and vital skill acquisition. Our over-reliance on natural resources, which are finite, to drive our agenda is unsustainable. Investing in human capital and building stronger economic value for the citizenry, rather, as in the case just mentioned, is regarded as a significant force multiplier that has limitless potential. Mr. Speaker, the focus on education and acquisition of essential 21st century skills for the new millennium learners is now pervasive than the past across the world. It is on record empirically that every single year of schooling raises earnings 10%, a rate of return that is obviously higher than alternative investments in bonds, stocks, deposits, among others. That is why the country is determined to develop our human capacity. The President is committed to providing our citizens with the requisite knowledge, skills, experiences needed from deprivation to the path of prosperity. Education is the shortest pathway between deprivation and opportunity, between despair and hope, between helplessness and promise. It gives meaning to the preamble of the 1992 Constitution, which among things provides that we secure for ourselves and posterity the blessings of liberty, equality of opportunity, and prosperity. When we got into government, Mr. Speaker, we made an immediate and remarkable stride in education by rolling out our flagship free SHS program in September 2017, 9 months into the year of office. It was a promise to the people of Ghana, and we kept it. To date, over 1.2 million students have benefited from free senior high school program, which has expanded access to secondary education and enabled 400,000 students to enroll in senior high school. Despite a few initials in respect of implementation, Ghanaians have largely embraced this program, and testimonies are endless. Mr. Speaker, in 2016, many ridiculed the capacity to implement the program, citing unavailabilities, inadequate classroom structures, and other school facilities to support the implementation. Seeing how successful the program's implementation has been with such important policies, such as the double calendar program, sustainable funding strategies, among others, our opponents making new terms and promising a review of the program if they win power in 2020 elections, except they have failed to specifically say what aspect they will review and to what end and purpose. It is instructive to note that under the progressive free SHS, when they were in government, they left an arrears of over 30 million cedis in respect of the 2015-2016 academic year, where the program started with day students only. That has still been paid by the Nanado government. All was paid by NDC in the respect of the 120 students catered for another high-sounding progressive free education in the 2017 academic year. Notwithstanding the initial hiccups, the free SHS program, I believe, is here to stay, and we are confident that the generalities are fully behind it. Let me assure the House that President Akufo-Addo is committed to ensuring that no child in this country will ever be left behind or denied access to senior high school education for the sole reason that they are forced to pay for the education. Mr. Speaker, in order to achieve greater access to education, we recognize that access alone is not adequate in guaranteeing quality education we desire. For this reason, the government is committed to ensuring quality and relevant education that will produce confident, skilled, and global citizens who are ready and able to compete with their counterparts anywhere in the world. We have, from the very beginning of this administration, resolved to pursue bold and transformative measures to address fundamental challenges that undermine education, including in particular access to equity in and quality of education. Mr. Speaker, do permit me to run through a few. First, basic schools had a high use of fees and levies as capitation grant amount of 4 cedis per child per year that was woefully inadequate. Research conducted by the National Development Planning Commission in 2015 revealed that fees and levies charged to pupils hindered access and effective participation in education to those who had difficulty paying fees and levies imposed by the schools. In 2017-2018 academic year, capitation grant was increased from 4.5 cedis to 9 cedis, then the subsequent year to 10 cedis. The 122% increase in per capita capitation grant has contributed to removing the cost barriers to free access and provide schools with minimum amount of funds to keep schools running. Significant teachers in our public schools, basic schools, were untrained. In 2016, 1:52 at the kindergarten and 1:43 at the primary level. The percentage of trained teachers was 66% at the kindergarten level and at the primary level. To promote quality education, we have achieved rate 1 to 37 at kindergarten and 1 to 33 at primary level in 2019. The percentage of trained teachers has improved to 88% at the primary level. In addition, the outstanding bills that were bequeathed on key supplies for education service delivery have been paid. 9 million on capitation, 4 million on feeding grant for special schools, 40 million on exercise book to basic schools, and 4 million on the supply of schools, amongst others. There were delays in disbursement of feeding grants for special schools, affecting the effective operation of schools. Mr. Speaker, Learning outcomes, the most important why we send our children to school, were very low across the pre-tertiary levels of education. In 2013 and 2015, early grade reading assessment and early grade mathematics assessment results show that by the end of E2, less than 2% can read with fluency and comprehension. Majority of pupils don't perform well in mathematics beyond the level. In the National Education Assessment conducted in 2016, only 11% of primary 6 pupils were proficient in maths. It is heartwarming to know that the well-thought-out initiative pursued since 2017 are beginning to yield results. In 2018, National Education Assessment for proficiency rate in mathematics had increased from 11% to 22% in 2018. At the secondary level, the WASSCE was poor. From 2011 to 2016, approximately 75% of all candidates failed to achieve qualification in tertiary education. In 2015, 49% of candidates scored F9 in maths. 37 scored F9 in integrated science. To improve performance, we invested heavily in supplying relevant instructional resources to schools and recruited providing in-service training with a focus on maths, science, and strengthening school leadership. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, the pass rate in maths reached 65%, the highest ever since the exams was introduced decades ago. Similarly, the proportion of students that scored F9 in maths had declined from 45% in 2015 to 14% in 2019. In integrated science, the pass rate increased from 48% in 2016 to 63% in 2019. The proportion of students that scored F9 in integrated science declined from 37% to 10% in 2019. For a long period, effective and meaningful learning in our schools was challenged with a curriculum which was fragmented. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, we prioritized curriculum revision and pursued it aggressively. We did under review, KG to primary 6 was completed, transitioning us from objective-based curriculum to a 21st century standards-based curriculum. Mr. Speaker, subsequently, the Common Core Curriculum Program has been developed for junior high school and senior high school. 153,000 teachers were trained, Mr. Speaker, across the country to receive the initiative, and the training is continuing. Mr. Speaker, this month in September, the curriculum emphasis on acquisition of foundational reading, writing, arithmetic, and creative skills, and core competencies including creativity, innovation, critical thinking and problem solving, communication and collaboration, cultural identity and global citizenship, personal development and leadership, including digital literacy. As a sequel, Mr. Speaker, we have outdoored the Common Core Curriculum for Junior High School 1 to SHS 1. With significant numbers of our children truncating the education at the basic level of years, the free SHS program, together with comprehensive Common Core, holds both junior and senior high school together, will certainly increase opportunity for many to access improved quality secondary education. In the past, approximately 30% of all students placed in senior high schools failed to enroll. The proportion of students placed in high school that failed to enroll has declined to 11% in 2019. The transition rate from junior high school 3 to senior high school 1 has also increased from 63% to 90%. In the area of technical vocational education and training, Mr. Speaker, we were challenged with poor incoherent management structures and governance arrangement, all which retarded the positive development of TVET skills training sector. It gave the perception that the TVET sector was for the poor at mind. Mr. Speaker, at the tertiary level, we met a sector without a guiding policy direction. Currently, tertiary education has developed without proper guidance as expansion was not really coordinated. Within this period, Mr. Speaker, tertiary education policy has been passed with extensive stakeholder consultations. This has subsequently fed into the Public University Bill, which is currently going through this legislative house. Mr. Speaker, we had outdated legal and institutional frameworks. To address this, we initiated a comprehensive legal and reform agenda in 2017. To date, we have passed over 5 bills with the support of Parliament of Ghana. We are strengthening school inspection through the National Inspectorate Board And to this end, we are improving management and accountability systems to ensure that our schools are led by leaders who themselves see themselves as instructional leaders as well as school administrators. They will be empowered to deliver improved, continuously improving learning outcomes and take responsibility for these outcomes. We have supported the Ghana Education Service to refocus their submission from policing to supporting schools to improve. Mr. Speaker, all these important reforms will come to now engaging the teachers for the simple reason that the teachers are the center of the educational system as the frontliners and engineers of quality learning outcomes. The President is motivated by putting the teachers in the several reforms we have undertaken in the education space for positioning our teachers to acquire the right set of skills to deliver quality learning outcomes for our students. Our mantra has been and remains the teacher first. This is what guided our key promise to restore the teacher training allowance abolished. We've kept to that promise. Our record as a government on teacher reforms has revolved around the UNESCO 9-point agenda. Mr. Speaker, for years, most treasured learners, particularly those in basic schools, were taught by teachers whose initial teacher training had consistently been worrying. The minimum teaching qualification for basic school teachers used to be diploma from our College of Education, while their counterpart teachers in secondary school was a bachelor's degree from the university. Many previous research evidence and government policy documents had suggested that weakness in the quality of teachers produced basic examination. For example, a report by the Department for International Development funded project in 2015 observed that the diploma in basic school education curriculum does not adequately prepare teachers to teach in Ghanaian schools. Mr. Speaker, we deeply appreciate the fact that early years of a child's education are extremely significant to their future development and achievement. Consequently, we have in our focus on teacher reforms taken the necessary steps to upgrade all colleges of education to university colleges to award a Bachelor of Education degree following a review into the teacher education curriculum. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to reiterate the minimum qualification for teaching at our basic schools very soon will be first degree, in addition to other regulatory requirements of the National Teaching Council. Those in close collaboration and with the support of tutor program, our aim is to upgrade the capacity and improve upon the quality of teacher education to push our teachers to be able to respond to our current and future challenges in education. Act 778, the Education Act, passed by this House in 2008, led to setting up of the National Teaching Council with responsibility for setting professional standards, registering and licensing teachers. Mr. Speaker, this has been fully made functional and the teacher licensing exam has been conducted. The aim of the teacher licensing regime is to primarily enable qualified teachers to acquire a professional license and prepare them to meet the demands of the national teaching standards, as well as global standards of minimum knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes necessary to deliver effectively in school. Government believes this will help improve the image of teaching to be at par with other professions. To further deepen our commitment to teachers and their professional growth, the government has introduced a professional teachers allowance of 1,200 per year for teachers and 600 per year for non-professional teachers. This will enable teachers to invest in upgrading their skills and keeping abreast with modern trends to assist in improving learning outcomes. The book and research allowance, Mr. Speaker, which was abolished, has been restored to government. We have not only restored, but approved a 200% increase in allowance from 500 Ghana cedis to 1,500 Ghana cedis. Let us not forget that this was introduced under His Excellency President Ajay Kufuor. Further to this, Mr. Speaker, this government has laid before Parliament the Ghana National Research Fund Bill, the purpose of which is to provide for funds to support national research in tertiary and other research institutions. Through the Educational Trust Fund, government is providing support for universities who want to upgrade their qualification. Indeed, a staff audit of Technical University, the College of Education, reveals several gaps, and staff who fall short of the minimum qualifications required to teach in those institutions have been given up to 2 years to update their qualifications and are able to draw on these resources. I am delighted to announce to the House The Cabinet has approved proposals for the management of post-retirement contracts in public universities. The approval provides grounds for streamlining and regularizing the need to retain highly skilled and experienced staff to support the core business of universities. Post-retirement contracts in all public universities shall be guided by the following rules. Mandatory retirement for academic staff of public universities shall continue to be 60 years in line with the constitutional dictates. Professorial grade staff shall be eligible for post-retirement contracts until the age of 70. The initial contract will be for 5 years to 65, and afterwards contracts shall be offered on a 2+2+1 basis, subject to need and good health. Senior lecturers shall still be eligible for post-retirement contracts to the age of 65, subject to need and good health. This approval has become particularly necessary as part of measures to bolster and maintain a critical mass of academic staff to support anticipated significant increase in enrollment as a consequence of the free senior high school program. The retention of highly skilled experienced staff is further aimed at boosting graduate enrollment and research overall faculty research output and the training of young faculty staff, among others. Teacher pathways. As part of school management reforms, Government is introducing management pathways for who show an early interest in school management. We will then support them with the necessary training process to enable them access school leadership roles early on in their careers. We believe it is important to identify and groom inspirational teachers to assume management roles and drive academic excellence. This government took office in January 2017. We have so far employed a total of 63,357 teachers and non-staff in the pre-tertiary sector as at the end of December 2019. We have received financial clearance to recruit an additional 27,367 teaching and non-teaching, comprising 16,500 newly qualified teachers, 6,100 graduate teachers, and 3,232 replacement staff, and 135 non-teaching staff. This brings to a total staggering number of 93,724,000 employed by the end of the first of this government. Mr. Speaker, there was a time in this country when under the 3-month pay policy of our hard-working teachers were paid only 3 months' salary, no matter how long they had worked since being engaged. This, Mr. Speaker, has been abolished, and it led to what called the legacy arrears that we inherited. Today, newly engaged teachers have had arrears paid a few months after commencing employment. Again, so far, this government has cleared over 91% of the legacy arrears we inherited. Mr. Speaker, the teacher promotion was laborious, lengthy, expensive, face-to-face interview process riddled with the perceptions of corruption and victimization that was stacked in the 20th century practices and procedures. We did end teacher unions and other stakeholders and eventually settled on a test for a particular ranks of applicants. I am pleased, Mr. Speaker, to report that the maiden aptitude test for promotion has been a resounding success, and teachers appreciate the relatively simple process now in place. Mr. Speaker, contrary to the previous situation where it took months for teachers to be promoted to have their salary adjustments reflected, I am pleased to inform the House that teachers who received their promotion letters in April 2020 saw reflection of adjustment in their main salaries. Mr. Speaker, regarding teachers' conditions of service, which is being worked on and was just signed last week, the National Teaching Council and Fair Wages and the government will soon be able to resolve any challenges thereafter. Mr. Speaker, government reforms in the teacher education form part of a wider scope of reforms at all levels to ensure that the education delivery system meets the needs of the 21st economy that produces skilled, confident, competitive citizens to power industrialization. We will continue to engage with the teacher unions and other stakeholders on how to improve the image of the teaching profession, improve teacher education and training, as well as improve learning outcomes. Our vision of a 21st century teacher is one who is competent, skilled, and professionally trained and equipped with the right set of competencies to play a key role in delivering improved learning outcomes for learners to development needs. Mr. Speaker, in the TVET sector, an extensive With extensively grown in status around the world, Ghana is not left behind. The growth is largely owed to the general acceptance that TVET is the driving force for economic development. Irrefutably, TVET provide desirable talent, skills, and the needed manpower that is required to propel development. The government, acknowledging the potential TVET presents strategically, set the following priorities: provide the youth with skills that will make them employable and enhance their livelihood and create wealth; provide the youth with skills required by industries as government pursues its industrialization agenda; make skills and TVET the driver of development in this country; enhance the Ghanaian workforce to make them globally competitive and attractive; and provide the youth the opportunity to fully explore their capabilities with state-of-the-art training facilities and equipment as we industrialize. To this end, we developed a 5-year strategic plan for TVET transformation to ensure a well-organized, coordinated, effective national TVET system. Mr. Speaker, the implementation of this strategic plan has resulted in enhancing the government arrangement in the sector to the extent that all public TVET institutions are being realigned to be under the Ministry of Education. The Education Regulatory Bodies Bill that has been passed in this House, currently passed by this House, will resolve the fragmentation in TVET landscape where public TVET institutions were scattered under 19 different ministries. This will lead to effective coordination, regulation, harmonization, standardization, and quality of instructional in the competency-based training. Mr. Speaker, the government has invested in the infrastructure in the TVET, manifested by upgrading all vocation training institutes, opportunity visualization centers, control tool foundries and machine centers, upgrading technical and vocational institutes, including the building office to support possible TVET examination, and the first phase of the establishment of 32 state-of-the-art TVET centers are commencing. There are additional infrastructure equipment provision at all technical universities to achieve quality delivery at the tertiary level. Mr. Speaker, government has submitted to the House the Ghana Jobs and Skills Project, which will lead further to more upgrading of skills among the country's population, and create more and better quality jobs to improve on the jobs outcome in the country. The development objective of the project is to support skills development and job creation in the country. Mr. Speaker, improving the quality of TVET delivery is very critical to government, and so it has been working smartly. This has enabled the accreditation of over 115 training providers, out of which 33 are public and 82 are private institutions. Let me state that until this government assumed office, National Technical and Vocational Education Training Qualification Framework was on the shelves gathering dust. I'm glad to report that 6,817 learners have been certified under the qualification framework. Mr. Speaker, Ghana has registered as the 81st member of the World Skills International, and Ghana will be part of the global movement dedicated to promoting the benefits of skills training, have access to resources, activities, and events across the 6 focus areas. Mr. Speaker, the World Skills International is a movement that is changing the lives of young people through skills. It is made up of 83 member organizations reaching 2/3 of the world population and creating measurable impact at every level. Our membership will build the confidence of young people, empower communities, and fuel our economy through youth employability, creativity, and innovation. This is to ensure that as a country, we grow the rate of skills required for industrialization and economic growth. In the end, Mr. Speaker, ours is to make Ghana a learning nation through education. It is to make the Ministry of Education the Human Resource Office of Ghana, and I'm confident that our visionary President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, will get there. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to make this statement of government in line with Order 72 of the House. Thank you, and I do commit the full rendition to the House Department. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for attending to the House to brief us. The rankings, the ranking and the chairman of the committee plus leadership appropriate comments. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to thank the Honorable Minister for Education statement he has made on education in the country and to make a few comments. Mr. Speaker, to begin with, I want to debunk some assertions made by the Honorable Minister. The first has to do with the cancellation of books and research allowance. Mr. Speaker, the Minister in his statement mentioned that this government thought the books and research allowance which was cancelled. It is not true. The research allowance was never cancelled by the NDC government. What was intended to be done was to create book and research fund, which bill was even laid in Parliament here in 2016. But we could not take it before the life of the last Parliament expired. So there was never any cancellation. And I'm sure 2016 book and research allowance was paid to the various tertiary institutions. And the Ministry of Finance, I'm sure, has records to that effect. So it is not true that the books and research allowance was. Mr. Speaker, the Minister also mentioned that 3 months' salary was what was paid at the time, and that has also been abolished. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that this was not the decision of the Ministry of Education or Ghana Education Service. It was a decision taken by Cabinet and the Ministry of Finance. So the GES was not responsible for that. So you cannot claim that the Ministry of Education or the GES cancelled the payment of arrears to teachers. So, Mr. Speaker, that assertion should not be said that the Ministry of Education at that time was responsible for that. Mr. Speaker, in continuation, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the cancellation of teacher training allowance was for a purpose. We know very well that we have a lot of vacancies for teachers in the country. And to make teacher training education available to students or pupils, we had to expand the system. Because colleges of education at that time had the facility which could admit more students. So the government at the time decided that they should remove the allowance and made it possible for many more students to enter colleges of education. So for the first time, we had about 14,000 students entering colleges of education that year when the allowances were removed and replaced with the Students' Loan Trust Fund, which they had access to. In any case, how much is the allowance even paid today? Very meager. Very meager. And I don't think it is meeting even the needs of parents. So we need to know that this was done so that many teachers will be trained in this country. And that is what is happening now. So if his ministry is now employing more teachers, it is because of that policy, which was in 3-4 years ago. And the Mahama administration needed to be praised for that bold decision. Otherwise, several thousands of teachers would have been trained for now. The current minister post them as teachers to teach in our various schools. So at least appreciation must be shown for that. Mr. Speaker, in the minister's speech, I was expecting him to tell us more about what is happening at the basic education level, because there is neglect of the basic education, as far as I know, because the infrastructure development in the basic school is no longer accelerated as it used to be some 6-8 years ago. There was pragmatic step to make sure that we removed a lot of schools that had very bad structures. I was expecting him to tell that within the 3 years so far, or 3.5 years to 4 years now, this is the number of structures they have put in place at the basic level, so that we can know that this number of have been offered better classroom accommodation. Mr. Speaker, we know last year a new curriculum was adored, but up to now, what textbooks do we have for teachers to use in these classrooms or these basic schools? Those things are lacking. We were promised the textbooks will be out in a very short time, but we are still looking for these textbooks to come for us to have in our basic schools. So the lack of teaching learning materials in our basic is a very big challenge. I wish the minister had addressed us fully on what steps they have taken to make sure that our basic schools become attractive, so that many more parents will send their children to public schools more than the private schools. Mr. Speaker, we know that education is a fundamental right, and everybody should have access to such education. We know very well that the free senior high school was introduced in September 2017, as the minister said, but he has not fully addressed us to let us know what steps the ministry and the government are taking to make sure that that obnoxious double-track system is as quickly as possible, because that is affecting quality education in the country. How will students go to school for 2 months, come and stay home for 2 months before they go back again? And you can see that with this pandemic now, we don't know where we are. It is gold or green that will go next, we don't know. So the minister has to address us seriously to know what is being done.
Honorable Dr. Akoto.
So, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Dr. Akoto Osei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I refer to order 30. Speaker, I may want to read it. A minister of state may make an announcement or a statement of government policy. Any such announcement or statement should be limited to facts which it is deemed necessary to make known to the House, and should not be designed to provoke debate at this stage. Mr. Speaker, any member may briefly, subject to the same limitation. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether he's making a statement, but why he's treading, he may provoke debate, and I just want to advise him that it is not question time, so you should pay attention to order 72, so that we can make forward. He said we don't know whether the free SHS are there. Is this question time?
Honorable, you may continue.
Mr. Speaker, I said that the minister did not tell us how soon the double-track system will end, because it is not helping the system at the senior high school level. Because students have to spend a long time at home rather than usual, and that is affecting quality education at the secondary school level, which must be addressed. Mr. Speaker, I also expected the minister to tell us about the provision of textbooks at the senior high level, because we know very well that the core subjects are there. What about the elective subjects? Parents are made to buy these textbooks for the awards, unlike before. So what steps will the ministry take to make sure that when it is free, it should be free, so that we know that from A to Z, all these things are being provided at the secondary school level? And Mr. Speaker, the number of secondary schools that we've had now is not enough to cater for the rising number of students that enter senior high school from the basic level. I remember about 350 new secondary schools were promised, but I am sure even one has not taken off. How soon will those 50 new secondary schools take off? So we need to know what plans.
In conclusion,
So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to thank the Minister for the statement, but there's more to be done than he has said. He has not met my expectations so much that he needs to know that he now tells us, with even this pandemic now, what is the way forward? I was expecting him to say that. We know that at this time, this is the program outlined for the basic level, secondary, tertiary. But as we move out of this house, going on recess, we will be able to tell our conscience that these are the plans that the ministry has for the educational system in the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
thank you very much. Majority. Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the statement earlier made by the Minister responsible for education. Mr. Speaker, I would start by remembering all of us a statement that was made by the wife of our late Vice President, Mzata. May his soul rest in peace. We will not buy you chalk today nor tomorrow. In tree, she said, "Yen to chalk mama net, and mama china." You are not going to chalk today and tomorrow. If you are a teacher and you cannot improvise, then you better stop the work. Today, capitation grant, thank God, has been increased from 40 to 50%
Honorable,
to 10 cities.
this buy you will not buy you chalk today or tomorrow. I don't remember it in the literature. Do you have the authority here? Otherwise, withdraw and make progress.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much. I'll take your guidance. Mr. Speaker,
You withdraw.
Mr. Speaker, it was a factual statement.
Honorable, please. You either withdraw or you will take your seat.
Mr. Speaker, I'll take a cue. I withdraw and apologize for making that statement. Mr. Speaker, did I hear my able ranking member say that because we have proposed to pay the allowance of teachers, the number of training teachers in our various training colleges have reduced, and therefore we don't have teachers on the field to fill all the classrooms? Mr. Speaker, I want him to know that when allowances were not paid, a number of teachers were hired from between 2013 to 2016 who never got paid. A debt that this government came to inherit and came to be known as legacy arrears, that this government has got to pay. But it's left with only a small portion of it. Mr. Speaker, I hold in my hand a letter from St. Thomas Senior High School, as Amanka says, here, a letter written to me as Chairman of the Education Committee with a number of appointment letters ranging from 2012 to 2015, who received duly their appointment letters from the Ministry of Education but never got paid. I can table it. It's written to me for me to go talk to probably the minister or something to do something about it. This is the evidence written to me because I have done that for a number of people with here, and when they heard about it, they also brought their petitions, duly signed by the headmaster, with appointment letters attached, ranging from 2012 down to 2015, who were never paid. Here in my hands. I got it last week when I visited my constituency. And so, if my colleague is saying because they were not paying allowances, there were a number of trained teachers who could go to the training colleges and get posted. This was the effect. They were never paid, Mr. Speaker. And that areas have been settled by this good government. Mr. Speaker, I've also heard him say that the free education is not affecting the elective subjects. Of course, how many elective subjects do you have in the free SHS? Countless of them, very numerous. And so if the government is paying attention to the core subjects where every student is, of course, required to read mathematics, integrated science, and then English, and government is providing the textbooks for these subjects and also providing all the exercise books for it, I think that this government is doing very well, and we need to commend the efforts of the government, and not to say that, what about the elective subjects? Yes, the elective subjects are there, but there are many. How many elective subjects do you have? About 20 of them. So gradually, when they say free SHS, it should be done progressively. What did we see? At first, it was that we cannot do free SHS. It wasn't possible to do free SHS. Then at a point when they won in 2012, it turned out to be progressively free. And in the progressively free, it was first given to only day students. That, Mr. Speaker, we had an arrears of over 30 million cedis that this government has come to settle. And then in 2016, in the 2016 year, it was said that they were going to do it to cover the boarding students. Again here, they started initially, but left a debt of about 9 million cedis as captured in this document. No boarding student ever earned anything on free SHS. This government is now doing it. From Form 1 to Form 3, every student who goes to school doesn't pay any school fees. They get up to even their uniforms and everything, including even bed cloth and all that. The only thing that the government is yet to cover is probably the elective subject textbooks. And I think that this government is doing very well at that. So, when it comes to capitation grant, I didn't mention it first. 4 cities, 50 pesos to 10 cities. A huge jump, over 122% jump. Mr. Speaker, this is paying that. And to the extent that the government has asked people to even stop paying, examination fees. So when it is time for examination, of course, government will pay all the examination fees to students, because research showed that, the reason why some students were not going to school, some people were not going to school, was just because of that meager amount. Some parents couldn't pay, and therefore government had to step in to pay. And now, in almost all our schools, if you go to the basic schools in our various constituencies, every school is filled to the brim. So this is what good governance is all about. For instance, if you take teacher ratio, trained teacher ratio to pupils, for instance, initially in 2016, we had about 1 to 52%, 1 to 52, 1 teacher to 52 for KG, and 1 teacher to 43 pupils in primary school. It has now improved to 1 teacher to 37 for KG, and then 1 teacher to 33 for primary schools. This is because the government did well to employ as many as about 67,000 teachers within the last 3 years. And this year has had financial clearance to also appoint over 27,000 teachers, ranging from senior high school, GHS, and then primary school. That I think that the government, of course the ministry, is going to apply and employ some more students. So, what is more for us to do? There was a question posed by my able ranking member. When is double track going to stop? When we were starting this program, a program lineup was drawn. It was set in a workshop. Myself and my ranking member, present in the workshop, were told that it's going to travel for 7 years. And so he's aware. So I wonder why he's asking that question again. We were told that double track would travel for a maximum 7 years, and that efforts were to be made to build several schools. Yes, Mr. Speaker, the last time we approved of our trip to go and visit schools as a committee, and when we did visit Ashanti region and BA, we saw a number of buildings coming up, classrooms, dormitories, libraries, and all that. And the contractors were doing very well. Those who were not doing well, we asked the headmasters to write a report so that we could also, of course, forward it to the Ministry of Education to sanction those huge buildings were all coming up with a view of course, ending the double track system within 7 years. Already this year, this academic year, if we have started, I know there are a number of schools that we are going to stop the double track system and then run just a single track system. So the free SHS is on course, and at the point in time, within a maximum of 7 years, that is the answer to your question. Double track system will stop. Mr. Speaker, there are a number of things that have been mentioned here, and I think that it will be better for everybody. I would advise them to make copies of this document for all of us to read the developments that are going on within the educational sector. I saw on WhatsApp, some social media, a section of the opposition party, people jubilating that we have made a mess of education. Why? Because a few people are out there saying that what they learned, the questions that was posed to them at their SHS level, they could not answer the questions. And I asked myself, so is this the duty of the president to also ensure that what you read is, of course, as a question for you to answer? Some 14 students even had the guts to go out there and insult the president and had them videoed. The president is always a very lenient president. When they were asked, when GS sacked them, the president has pleaded.
And in conclusion,
the president has for them to go back and write their exams. We thank him so much. And we thank God for giving us such a person to lead us in this country. We continue to pray for him to be the leader, so that Ghana will see the developments that we are observing now. Mr. Speaker, I thank you so much for this time to support the statement ably made by the minister. Thank you.
thank you very much. Honorable Minority Leader.
Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity to contribute to the statement made by the Minister for Education and for sharing with this House what he describes as the achievements of the President Nana Addo Dankwa government and his role as Minister for Education. I want to thank him for that. But Mr. Speaker, my expectation was that the man will be sharing with this House what plans he has in relation to COVID, what is happening to Ghanaian students from the basic level up to the secondary education level. That, for me, would have been a major public policy priority issue to keep the Ghanaian public abreast how he is addressing, particularly the disparities and inadequacies. Our children, my child and his child, are privileged, and therefore they have opportunity of Zoom. The pupils in the Saito schools, so-called Saito schools, whether it's Anargo Primary or Kumbungu Secondary or Bagabaga, they don't have an opportunity to learn while at home under COVID. And Minister, that must engage your priority attention in order that you'll be resolving a necessary disparity in the provision of education and quality education to Ghanaian children in private schools against Ghanaian students in public schools. More importantly, I expected your statement to address the fate of senior school graduates, those to write the final exams. I have followed your Twitter handle and your text response, but that is not information in Parliament. So when you write, come here and assure the people of Ghana, this is the Parliament of Ghana, what plans the President and your ministry have
for that category of students. Because, Mr. Speaker, education is key to development, and if we get it right, this country will be on that rightful path to prosperity. If we get it wrong, it can affect us. He knows that I'm his younger senior brother, so I don't intend to engage in a banter with him. But, Mr. Speaker, just to share a few thoughts, many of our colleagues sometimes come here and do politics of arrears, be told legacy arrears that you have paid. We will commend you, but go and deal with it holistically. When you met with the team, whether it was TEU or NAT or CCTA, their figure was 10,000. Your GES figure was 2,500. You resolve only 2,500. Come and tell Parliament that we have dealt with all legacy arrears. They are still outstanding. Some negotiations which is ongoing on with your teacher unions. Now you talk about book and research allowance, and Mr. Speaker has a ranking for education, have rightly corrected it. And you see, we must get it right, because a matter which affects academia is not a matter to be reduced to partisan politics. I had the privilege at the time to chair the negotiation with the University Teachers Association of Ghana, and he knows that. It is in your record. It was mentioned that you want to pay them direct from the consolidated salary or to pay them from an established fund, to which a bill was introduced in this House to establish the Book and Research Fund. Indeed, at that meeting, it was at that meeting that I gave policy advice that even the negotiation was not for government or Minister for Employment or the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. Universities are to negotiate with council. That is what is appropriate legally and lawfully within Ghana. So to say that book and research allowance, go and pay. Teacher education, 2017-2018, the trainee teachers who pass out are at home. They are listening to you. They are at home. Teacher trainees who pass out, 2017-2018, are at home. You are giving them an assurance in September. We are not yet in September. You want to come here to hail you. That is also a matter we should deal with. Then finally, Mr. Speaker, free senior high school, noble initiative of President Nana Addo Dankwa. But today, we cannot measure its outcome. Fortunately for us, they've just written their first high school exams. The outcome will inform policy direction. When, for instance, in 2018, you spent 417 million on infrastructure and education, then 34 million on agriculture and 11 million on health. Disproportionate. But whether we Ghanaian students in numeracy or literacy or human capital is a matter for posterity to judge. Because statistically, less than 41 of SSS graduates make it on top of the ladder to tertiary education. Therefore, I say statistically up to date. I have the statistics. You know that. So, Mr. Speaker, noble objective, but we must admit that it counts an opportunity cost to us as a country, that money which otherwise could be invested in health, could be invested in agriculture. We worry about the use of oil revenue on purposes of consumption and on education. But hail the minister, who hail you. You've come to Parliament. But come properly on COVID and education. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minority Leader. Majority.
Speaker, the Deputy Minister would want to make a mention, so I will yield to him.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, I stand here to make a brief statement on the wider and much longer statement made by the Honourable Minister. First of all, to commend you for your picking of the long address, which was extremely comprehensive, beginning from the reforms that have taken place in the basic level of education through to the tertiary. A wide gamut of reforms beginning with the reforms right at the basic level where curriculum has been reviewed, this time ensuring that children at that very early age are deeply immersed, not just in the reading, writing, but also in creative thinking, digital literacy, and problem solving that at that early age, moving them that early away from the theoretical outlook learning that we found in the earlier dispensation. It took us through to the reforms at the secondary level that we're aware of. But I must say that the three SHS that he has emphasized, and many of us have emphasized, the impact of this is not seen or felt as it is in the rural areas that many of us belong to. Parents and individuals have been freed entirely from any financial commitment that would otherwise be channeled through high school education. Secondary schools in the rural areas that were admitting a paltry number of students have now more than doubled their enrollments. It has given much more relief to sponsors and mentors and parents. But even much more importantly here, the other side of free senior high school, which has not been sufficiently emphasized, was emphasized. That is the technical and vocational education, where emphasis has been put on skills and vocational training, and where we already forget that it is the other side of the free senior high school, and the restructuring of technical and vocational education, ensuring more than 300 or so institutions that were splintered all over the country and belonging to different sectors within the economy are now all being brought under the Ministry of Education to ensure that there is unity and there is standardization and much more respect. Apart from this, let's also not forget that the reforms within the TVET take place not just at the secondary level, but if you look at the new trajectory that is evolving, you will realize that opportunities are available for skills and vocational training from secondary through the tertiary education. Much more importantly, the evolving of this into what is called the USET, the University of Skills and Entrepreneurial Training, which is established very, very soon. The advantage...
Minister, order. Honorable, do you write on the order? Honorable members, quiet, please.
Right, Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise on Order 89. Respectfully, I will read. A member shall not read his speech, but may read extracts from written or printed documents in support of his argument and may refresh his memory by reference to notes. Mr. Speaker, the Minister responsible for Education has read and the member is contributing to the statement and is copiously reading from another document. If he is presenting another statement, he should say so.
Honorable members, this is most obvious. When you finish, rule for yourselves. Or the honorable member is not entitled to rise and speak and be listened to. Honorable, please go on.
So, Mr. Speaker, our rules are very clear. So the other members should learn the rules of the House. He can make reference to whatever notes that he has to address us by way of contributing to the statement read by the Minister responsible for Education, but not really obviously from the notes that he has. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, Honorable Majority Leader.
Speaker, this is a House of Records, and our rules don't allow us to bear false witness.
Our rules don't.
They don't allow us to bear false witness. The professor is not reading any prepared document. Speaker, he's not reading. You rise up, go there. He's not reading. He's really, Mr. Speaker, he's not lifting up his head. That is true. But really, there's nothing. There's nothing that he's reading from. Get up from where you are sitting, go there. Don't bear false witness. It's not good enough. Mr. Speaker, I would urge my colleagues, our greetings, let him leave his seat, go and stand and sit by the
Majority Leader. Honorable Majority Leader, we will not go to the religious terrain, because that itself also has its implications. Please, if you insist the Honorable Minister was not reading, kindly say it, that's all. Honorable Minister, you are allowed to refer to your notes, if any, according to... Those who want to make contributions, please, you may rise. I'll give you the opportunity. Maybe you have got some very interpretation of the rules and you want to advise us on. But please, not seated. If you want to make a contribution, please stand up. I'm not talking about it. I'm not referring to the Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I couldn't possibly have been reading. My presentation was so halting that was clearly off the cuff. The only speech in front of me is a copy of the minister's speech statement. I'm sure I would have been much smoother in my presentation if I were reading. I can assure you, even though I'm not very conversant with your ground rules, I was not reading.
Honorable members,
I was not reading.
Honorable members, the Honorable Minister has assured he was not reading. Order. But it doesn't necessarily amount to false witness. Honorable Minister, you may please go on.
Mr. Speaker, the current debate about the possible impact of the free SHS, even at a time that the Akufo-Addo graduates have not come out, can be felt much more ahead of time. One could say, of course, for the final results of the WASSCE exams, but immediately you can tell from the 2019, am I still expected to be reading?
Honorable Minister, proceed. The floor is yours for now.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, from the results of the 2019 WASSCE exams, that is last year's, It is very clear that already there's considerable impact being made by the teachers, mainly because the policies that were rolled out by the ministry, by the government, did not just affect the final year students or those who started with the free. In 2019, Mr. Speaker, in 2019, as far as the results of the exams, the WASI exams were concerned, there has been considerable improvement in the performance of candidates in the area of science and mathematics. I have been following and analyzing the results of WASI right from 2006, when it started to date. Results of the integrated science has been the best ever in the history of WAEC. And I'm not saying that 2019, don't forget that the final year students in 2019 were not necessarily products of the free SHS, but they benefited from some of the policies that were rolled out and that were ancillary to the free school policy. And this included the change from trimester to semester system. It gives you hours, 54 more hours within the year, and enabled many of the students who otherwise would not have gotten credit in science and mathematics to get credit. In my own backyard, Aguna West, my constituency is Aguna East, the constituency I belong to. Aguna West constituency near Chrome Secondary Technical School or High Technical School got more than 70% credit passes in science. And if you look at the trajectory of development and performance right from 2013, even the secondary and high schools performed much better than they did the previous years. And for record purposes, the results of the WASI from 2006 to date, the high points of performance have been 2-3 areas. The period when the 4-year high school policy introduced by President Kufuor introduced, and yes, it clearly tells you, look at the results from 2011, 2012. Looking at the chart, if it were here, they were the peak points, unprecedented results. And the third high point is at the entry point of the free senior high school examinations that we have. It tells you how formidable and how well thought out the policies of this government has been. Putting this aside, move from this area to technical and vocational training hinted on, and then move to the tertiary education sector, where technical universities now exist in all the regions of the country. I'm talking about the standard or regional region to introduce them in the new regions that have been instituted.
Order.
It tells you how eager this government is.
Just a moment. Are you on a point of order or correction? What do you want to correct?
Prof made a comment. He said Akufo-Addo grab it. It's a strange phrase in this house. That is why I am on my feet
Honorable, you are out of order.
To ask him to clarify.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker,
a point of order must not be used as an instrument of inhibition. to check the free flow of well thought of arguments. I will not do that. Honorable Minister, please go on.
Mr. In spite of what is currently happening with the mild protests that have been launched by some of the free SHS students, let me say that the country is on course to gradually emerging as a strong science and technology and for the STEM subjects at both the basic, secondary, and tertiary levels. And this synchronizes well wider intentions and objectives of this government towards industrialization.
And in conclusion, Honorable Minister.
In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the impact of the reforms that are currently being undertaken by this government can be felt much fuller if one goes through the entire gamut of reforms right from kindergarten through the table. And this will take about 17 or 18 years. That is from the time one begins at the kindergarten level to the time that one finishes through the tertiary level, where one would have gone through a much more diversified and much more practical-oriented mode of trading. And finally, let me say that the recent bill that was passed, or rather the cabinet policy, ensuring that the age of rent officially, of course, remaining at 60 years, but allowing professors to go on teaching until they are 70, all other things being equal, and for senior lecturers to continue teaching possibly until 65, prepares the way for enlarging the human resource base that is really needed for the avalanche of students coming from the free SHS who otherwise wouldn't have had enough of lecturers to be teaching them. All this rolled together tells you that we are preparing this country to enrich the human resource base for national development. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, you've had a very exhaustive day, but you may have some 2 minutes for concluding remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, taking cognizance of Order 72, members are supposed to comment, we're supposed to be based upon facts. So I'd like to put some facts clear, and so that we can quickly round out the debate. I do thank honorable members for their contributions in this debate. Mr. Speaker, it is a fact. When you just suppose what the honorable ranking member said on the House, that they had already brought a bill to this House for the tertiary education, it presupposes that the decision has been taken to cancel the teacher training allowance, which has been restored. The Book and Research Fund, which has been restored. Mr. Speaker, you did not hear any honorary member talk about the fact that the teacher training allowance has been canceled. But Mr. Speaker, this is the fact. It is not true that there were more students in teacher training colleges than now. Mr. Speaker, I want to go back. When they left in 2016 at the end, the number of graduates in the colleges of education were 14,970. 14,970 whose teacher training allowance had been cancelled for 3 years. Mr. Speaker, 3 years. As we speak, the population with the teacher training allowance is 15,780. Yeah. Obviously, there was no expansion. Even if you expanded, which is true, you moved it from 6,000 when the allowance to 14,000 when you cancelled the allowance. But we restored the allowance, and the numbers are still than you left. That's because that is a fact. It's a bigger fact that the ranking member, in trying to separate the Ministry of Education from government in the trade policy that they have, are you by that saying that it was John Mama who instituted the trade policy?
President
President Mahama, who instituted the 3-month pay policy, and Professor J. Dano postgraduate minister was against. Is that what you are saying? Mr. Speaker,
That's what you are submitting.
that is submission. Mr. Speaker, I also want to put on the fact that the number of secondary schools that we have, I'm commenting, a fact. The number of secondary schools we have.
Honorable.
Okay.
You may point out.
I was just putting the facts.
But honorable, if this continues, if you continue
Mr. Speaker, I'll conclude.
then we shall restart the
Mr. Speaker, I'll conclude by thanking members. Thanking members for the spirit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for attending to the House and briefing us accordingly. Other comments, public business. Presentation of papers, item listed 5. Honorable Majority Leader.
Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, Consumer Service Regulations 2020.
Regulations presented and referred to the Subsidiary Legislation Committee for consideration and report. B. Finance. Minister.
Deputy Minister.
Very well, yes.
Request for waiver of income taxes amounting to 174,696,712 Ghana cedis and 50 pesos on personal emoluments of health workers and on additional allowances paid to frontline health personnel for the month of July 2020, August 20, and September 2020.
The request is duly presented and is referred to the Finance Committee for consideration and report. C. Minister, Local Government and Rural Development.
Annual statement by the Audit Committee of the Tema West Municipal Assembly for the year 2018.
Report. The statement is duly presented and is referred to the Committee on Local Government for consideration and report. D. Chairman of the committee.
Mr. Speaker,
Aye.
D. Roman I is not ready. We can lay the rest from Roman 2 all the way.
Aye.
Report of the Finance Committee on the EKN facility agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Finance and Dutch Bank AG as arranger, Bank and facility agent for an amount of 523 million euros to finance the construction of sections of the Western Rail Line on standard gauge for Takoradi Port to Huni Valley.
Report is duly presented and is for distribution to honorable members. Aye.
Report of the Finance Committee on the commercial loan agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Finance and Dutch Bank AG as arranger and facility agent, of 75,657,500 euros to finance the construction of sections of the Western Railway Line on standard gauge for Takoradi Port to Huni Valley.
Report is duly presented for distribution to honorable members. Ivy.
Report Finance Committee on the request for waiver of import duties, import VAT, NHIL, Get Fund Levy, Exempt Levy, Special Import Levy, and Domestic VAT, amounting to the Ghana cedi equivalent of 70,287,117 euros and 64 cents on project materials and equipment to be imported for the execution of the construction of sections of the Western Railway line on standard gauge for Takoradi Port to Huni Valley.
Report is for to other members. V.
Report Finance Committee on the loan agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Finance and Israel Discount Bank Limited, for an amount of $74,120,000 United States dollars, including Ashra's premium of $6,120,000 to finance the supply of armored vehicles to the government of Ghana.
The report is duly presented and for distribution to honorable members. V.
Report of the Finance Committee on the commercial agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Finance and Israel Discount Bank Limited, for an amount of $12 million United States to finance the supply of armored vehicles to the government of Ghana.
The report is duly presented is for distribution to honorable members. V. I.
Report of the Finance Committee on the request for waiver of import duties, import VAT, NHI, jet fund levy, exempt levy, and special port levy, amounting to the Ghana cedi equivalent of $830,079 United States dollars on materials, equipment, and vehicles required for the execution of the Greater Accra Sanitation and Livelihoods Improvement Project, GASSLIP.
Report duly presented and for distribution. VIII.
Report of the Finance Committee on the terms of a receivables-backed trade finance facility between the Ghana Cocoa Board, and a consortium of banks and financial institutions with the Government of the Republic of Ghana as guarantor for an amount of up to $1,300 million United States dollars to finance the purchase of cocoa for the 2020 and 2021 crop season by the Ghana Cocoa Board.
The report is presented and for distribution to honorable members. IX.
Report of the Finance Committee on the request for waiver of stamp duty amounting to up to Ghana cedi equivalent of $6,000,000 United States dollars on the receivables-backed trade finance facility, the Ghana Cocoa Board, and a consortium of banks and financial institutions with the Government of the Republic of Ghana as guarantor for an amount of up to $1,300 million United States dollars to finance the purchase of cocoa for the 2020-2021 crop season by the Ghana Cocoa Board.
The report is duly presented and for distribution to honorable members. Ye, Chairman of the Committee, I. Roads and Transport.
Report of the Committee on Roads and Transport on the addendum number 1 to the contract agreement between the Government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Railways Development, Ghana Railway Development Authority, and the Messrs. Afcons Infrastructure Limited of India, for an amount of $48,843,490 United States dollars and 54 cents for the variation in respect of the ongoing railway construction works between the ports of Tema and Pankadang.
Report is duly presented and for distribution to honorable members. Aye.
Report of the Committee on Roads and Transport on the supply contract agreement between the Government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Railways Development, and Messrs. Fang Electric International Company for an amount of $243,600,000 United States for the procurement of standard gauge rolling stock.
The report is duly presented and for distribution to honorable members. I.
Report of the Committee on Roads and Transport on the commercial contract agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Its Development, Ghana Railway Authority, and Amandi Investments Limited for an amount of 500 million euros for the construction of sections of the Western Railway line on standard gauge from Takoradi Port to Huni Valley.
The report is duly presented and for distribution to honorable members. F. Chairman of the Committee on Defense and Interior.
Report of the Committee on Defense and Interior, contract agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Defense, and Elbit Systems Land Limited of Israel for an amount of $8 million United States for the supply of armored vehicles to the government of Ghana.
The report is duly presented and for distribution to honorable members. Item listed 6. Presentation and first reading of bills. 6A. Honorable Minister for Health.
Speaker, Deputy Minister for Health will do the presentation on behalf of the Minister.
Yes, Honorable. Honorable Deputy Minister for Health. 6A.
Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Majority Leader, there's a difficulty. The bill is not here. And they cannot be in the position to read the long title. That's what I was waiting for. Honorable Majority Leader, yes.
Mr. Speaker, the two bills were brought to the House yesterday by the Minister for Health. But they delivered at the office of the clerk. So how can they say they don't have copies? Mr. Speaker, respectfully, if they cannot find them, we can deal with item number 7. Item 7.
So, in effect, item 6 is item listed 7. Motion. Honorable Minister for National Security. Honorable Minister for Security, all time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You are most welcome to the House.
Thank you very much,
But
Mr.
actually,
Speaker.
we were not seeing you. You were sandwiched.
Unfortunately so, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the motion numbered as item 7, 6 of today's order paper be adopted by this House. Mr. Speaker, I so move.
Thank you very much. Who seconds? Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minority Leader. The procedural motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say, those against say no. The ayes have it. Now, Honorable Minister, if you will kindly move motion 8 for us.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Security and Intelligence Agencies Bill 2020 be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, the object of the bill is to provide for matters relating to the national security, the establishment of regional and district security councils, all, Mr. Speaker, for the promotion of Ghana's human security and also to protect, preserve the unity and stability of our nation. Mr. Speaker, the Security and Intelligence Agencies Act of 1996, Act 526, has been in place now for over 24 years. Act 526 in its current form, Mr. Speaker, we believe does not adequately reflect the security architecture of the country. And we think there is the need for the restructuring of the national security architecture to respond adequately to emerging national security challenges, and also, Mr. Speaker, to cater for national security policy direction. In this connection, the bill seeks to repeal the Security and Intelligence Agencies Act of 1996, Act 526, to establish the required national security architecture to address emerging national security challenges, and also to take cognizance of other significant matters which we believe were not catered for in Act 526. So, Speaker, in view of the national security architecture, the current functions of the intelligence agencies, and also the membership and functions of the regional and district security councils are inadequate. The lines of reportage between the intelligence agencies, the national security architecture, and other ministries, departments, and agencies, we believe necessitate a holistic review to ensure clear channels of reportage. The required changes to Act 526 necessitates a repeal of Act 526 and a new and comprehensive piece of legislation is therefore required. So, Speaker, this new bill expands the existing role of the intelligence agencies to include how we can best combat significant new threats such as cybercrime and terrorism. As a result, there is a change in the nomenclature of the Bureau of National Investigation to the National Intelligence Bureau to denote that their activities are more skewed towards intelligence-oriented tasks. So, Speaker, essentially, we have sought to refocus and reorientate the intelligence agency to perform intelligence and leave investigation and other such things in the hands of the competent CID of the police. I so move.
Yes, Chairman.
The Speaker, I rise to second the motion, and in so doing, I present the committee's report, and I invite the Hansa Department to capture the entirety of the report. And the Speaker, with your leave, I read excerpts of the report. The Speaker, I would love to read paragraph 2 for a reason. The committee earlier determined by the House that the bill is of an urgent nature and may be taken through all stages of passage in one day in Article 106(13) of the 1992 Constitution and Order 119 of the Standing Orders of the House. The House, on Friday, 2020, voted to adopt the committee's report on the urgency of the bill and approved the determination and certification by the committee that the bill be passed in accordance with Order 119 Standing Orders of the House. The Speaker says, the contents of the bill. The bill contains 52 clauses and a schedule. Clauses 1 to 4 provide the matters related to National Security Council. They provide for the composition of the National Security Council established under Article 83 of the 1992 Constitution, the procedure for the meetings of the Council, Secretary to the Council and functions of the Council. Observations, paragraph 6. 6.1, expansion of the functions of intelligence agencies. The committee observed that it provides for the expansion of the functions of the intelligence agencies to include the combating of significant new threats such as cybercrime and terrorism. As a result, the Bureau of National Investigations, BNI, is to be converted into National Intelligence Bureau to reinforce its focus on activities skewed towards intelligence-oriented tasks. Also, the bill creates additional committees of the National Security Council and clarifies the roles of the key players in the national architecture, including the minister responsible for national security, the National Security Coordinator, and the Chief Director of the ministry responsible for national security. 6.2, expansion of the regional and district security councils. The committee further observed that the bill expands the membership and functions of the regional district security council to include the contribution of important stakeholders such as the National Disaster Management Organization and community leaders with knowledge in human security. Establishment of Bureau of National Communications. 6. The Bureau of National Communications, BNC, operates as a department under the Ministry of National Security with responsibility for signal intelligence and information assurance. These functions are critical to the effective and efficient discharge of the mandates of the Ministry of National Security. The committee noted that the bill seeks to BNC as an additional agency aimed at addressing emerging cybersecurity threats in the wake of global terrorism. It is therefore the considered view of some members that the object of creating the BNC as an intelligence agency would pose apparent Bureau of National Communications.
Honorable, time to march.
Yes.
please, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just
we
want to
have all got a report.
I'm coming to. I just want
Please
to
conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Take one of them and kill it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the committee observed that there is a modern trend of Parliament creating specialized committees to deal with matters concerned with intelligence in the state. The committee recommends that in the revision of the standing orders of the House, the standing orders committee may consider for recommendation to the House the creation of a committee to solely responsible for intelligence matters, separate and distinct from the Committee on Defense and Interior. Mr. Speaker, the committee, in view of the foregoing
as is
observations,
clear on the report, which we all have, which the Honourable Chairman is still reading to us. And in conclusion,
Mr. Speaker, the view of the foregoing observations and considering the importance of the bill to the security of this country, respectfully recommend to the House to adopt this report and pass the Security and Intelligence Agencies Bill 2020 into law in accordance with 10613 and Order 119 of the standing orders of the House, subject to the amendments proposed. Respectfully submitted, Mr. Speaker.
yes, Honourable. And then Honourable Dr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support the bill wholeheartedly. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, I'd like to state that the existing law, Act 526, which is also the Security and Intelligence Agencies Act 1996, has served its purpose. Mr. Speaker, Act 526, having been in existence for 24 years, clearly needs to be reviewed. And so this
Honourable
bill,
members,
which has been put before us,
the time and business ahead of us, I direct that sitting travels beyond the prescribed hours. Honourable, please go on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the bill seeks to review the current law, or Act 526, to reflect adequately the security architecture of our country and to restructure same. Mr. Speaker, in view of the fact that there are emerging global security challenges such as terrorism and cyber, which used not to be security threats or challenges at the time of the enactment of Act 526, I find this current bill very, very useful and fit for purpose. Mr. Speaker, it is also important to underscore the fact that under the current Act 526, lines of reporting have not been properly streamlined, thereby creating challenges for the management of the intelligence agencies and our national security as a whole. The bill seeks to streamline the lines of reporting amongst the intelligence agencies, ministries, and departments, which have something to do with the management of national security. That makes it very compelling for us to support the bill that is currently before us. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to stress that the current bill clearly spells out the functions and establishes effectively the office of the minister responsible for national security. That is not the case under the existing legislation. Now, the fact that the existing legislation allows for a president not to appoint a minister for national security has occasioned the designation of ministers other than a minister specifically appointed for that office to superintend over the affairs of national security in our country. But, Mr. Speaker, I think we have reached the point whereby it is important, given the critical role the security agencies and intelligence agencies play in our national development, to specifically establish a ministry to superintend over the operations of our agencies. Mr. Speaker, the creation of an office of minister responsible for national security will allow for civil control over the security and intelligence agencies of our state. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to state that the bill also specifically spells out of the minister responsible for national security, as well as the functions of the National Security Coordinator, as well as the Chief Director of that ministry. Under the existing law, Mr. Speaker, the minister responsible for security has one role, and that role or function is reporting to Parliament annually on the activities of the security agencies of state. Mr. Speaker, that situation leaves much to be desired. And so what the bill seeks to do is to specifically state functions of the minister. This would definitely resolve the turf wars that we are likely to exist between a minister and, say, the National Security Coordinator, because you now have the situation whereby the roles have been specifically spelled out or defined. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to advert my mind to a point of controversy.
Honorable, you will conclude. Subsequent speakers will have.
In conclusion, I'd like to state that the observation committee regarding the establishment of a Bureau of National Communications, Mr. Speaker, is one that needs proper reflection. I have done so and have come to the conclusion, Mr. Speaker, that Article 85, if read in conjunction with Article 94, 93 of our Constitution, one would come to the conclusion that this House has power to establish an additional intelligence agency of state. If you confine yourself to Article 85 alone, Mr. Speaker, you commit the error of arriving at that conclusion. The Constitution does not allow for the creation of additional intelligence agencies of state. And so we need to read the Constitution as a whole to be able to glean the intent of the framers of the Constitution. On that note, Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly support the bill before us. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, we have a number of financial motions ahead of us. The first Deputy Speaker had been away yesterday and today. Unfortunately, the second Deputy Speaker is not immediately available, and I will continue. That means we must do some guillotining. Majority leadership, you may determine the next speakers, or you may speak yourselves. And you're coming from. We must conclude this matter and allied matters we speak. Honorable members, I've told you our situation. When it is otherwise, very well, we can go, but I know when the time comes, we close. And other matters outstanding will be taken. But I can even take more than that. Yes, Honorable Dr. Okutu Osei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I guidance of your advice.
In view of the time and the business ahead of us, I direct that business go on beyond the prescribed hours. Honorable Doctor, you may go on. And then I will continue till wherever we can get to by the hour of 3.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I take guidance from your advice. I would have loved about it, but I'll try to be brief. There's no mind there's a need for a new securities and intelligence bill, given that the time has elapsed. But, Mr. Speaker, there are certain things from the committee's report that we ought to be careful about. I refer to paragraphs 5 and 6 of the committee's report. The Constitution spells out the National Security Council. This bill purports to compose the National Security Council again. I don't think we can do that. Secondly, the functions are specified in the Constitution. But the bill says that
the bill tries to define the functions of the National Security Council. I don't think that the bill can do that. But as much as I think that we need a new bill. Yeah, but the bill, read paragraph 5 and 6. Paragraph 5 is proposed to compose it. It is already established by the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I don't remember when the chief director of any ministry is being given a policy. Chief directors are implementers of government policy. We cannot put the chief directors on the same level as ministers. We should not purport to do that. So we have to be careful what we want to do. Finally, if you look at the bill, the National Security Coordinator is purporting to do things on behalf of the minister. I don't know since when we asked the National Security Council to do something we have the minister. It works for the government, not for the minister. So we cannot be pretending that we are assigning the National Security Coordinator a role on behalf of the minister. The minister cannot assign those functions, but the National Security Coordinator is appointed by the president, not the minister. So when we get to the of the bill, we have to be very careful. If you look in the book, that's what the bill is saying. Unfortunately, yeah. Mr. Speaker, coordinate on behalf of the minister. On behalf of the minister. But he does not coordinate with the minister. He coordinates on behalf of the president who appointed him. The minister cannot, on his own, assign the National Security Coordinator. It does brief the president.
Honorable members, we are discussing the principles. In that connection, yes, all manner of views may be brought forward.
Yes.
At the appropriate time, we shall be now dealing with consideration. But at this stage, the honorable member is entitled to make his views in terms of principle. No.
The point is that we have to be careful to delink policy making from operational matters. Policy making is done by ministers. The National Security Coordinator does operations. I have no difficulty with that. But as much as I think that we need a new bill, I think that when we get to the consideration stage, we have to look at the bill very carefully. Finally, Mr. Minister and Mr. Speaker, I that the memorandum of the bill is where the bill seeks to set up the BMC. And if we take Honorable Agaga's position, then it will be consistent with the bill. But if we take the committee's report, it will look as if that we are changing the memorandum of the bill. So we have to be very careful. Clearly, we cannot change the memorandum. So in the end, we have to decide that it is consistent with the Constitution, as he said. I tend to agree with his argument. With those few words, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the motion that the Security and Intelligence Agency Bill 2020 be read the second time. And Mr. Speaker, we are at crossroads, and crossroads as a country because the threats to national security have changed and have changed fundamentally. And we need to respond with appropriate and better national security infrastructure to secure the peace, stability, and the security of our nation. In that respect, I support this motion. I've just listened to my colleague, the Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation. Speaker, probably for him to some tried law. There was already in existence Act 526, Security and Intelligence Agencies Act of 1996. That was a product of the 1992 Constitution. That was that. therefore appreciated in law. That is why Article 93, and Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, I'll quote and take him through some provisions of the Constitution. That's why the Constitution in Article 93 provides, I'm reading the two for our purposes, subject to this provisions of this Constitution, the legislative of Ghana shall be vested in Parliament. So Article 93, this, when you read 93 too well, it vests the mandate of legislation in Parliament. But when it uses the words subject to this Constitution, that Parliament shall only do so in accordance with the Constitution of Ghana. That is why you now have a revised Security and Intelligence Agency Bill before Parliament, so that Parliament can only act within the parameters of the Constitution. Yes, Article 83 that you refer to, and Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, I go to it. There shall be a National Security Council which shall consist of defined. What we cannot do as Parliament is to reconstitute a National Security Council which is not consistent with Article 83. But all others we can do. It is within and within the powers of Parliament. But that in constituting it, that is why I say subject to this Constitution, only will be guided by the provisions of Article 83. So if in the bill you will find a composition of the National Security Council without, for instance, the Vice President or the key ministers of Defense and Interior, then this Parliament will question it and question the motive behind it and question it as a constitutional wrong. But once it is consistent, if I carry your arguments far, why do we have an act for the Electoral Commission? The Constitution only establishes it, but there's an act on the Electoral Commission pursuant to the Constitution. The same thing. So just to respond to him, then, Mr. Speaker, my argument. Now, when you come to the committees, and Mr. Speaker, this is what the committee says, and that is where I do not agree with them. Thankfully, Mr. Speaker, you were there. I'll share some facts and some history even inherited from you then as Minister for Communication. And Mr. Speaker, I refer you to page 7. Page 7. And I'll read 6 to 7. Establishment of the Bureau of National Communications. Mr. Speaker, everywhere in the world, no security institution can function without a dedicated IT infrastructure network. And that is why the BNC was established. Probably today I should even reveal it. Mr. Speaker, when I took over from you, and Agri team had taken over from you, and licensed Glo Telecom was one of the licenses on the 800 megahertz. My good friend here, Honorable Kennedy Ajepon's FM station, Oman FM, Radio Gold, and another were in their network. I'm demonstrating it. I'm demonstrating it. They were experiencing some interference in their network because, Mr. Speaker, the BNC of National Security was built on a CDMA platform, and we're migrating the country into 900 megahertz of GSM. So BNC of National Security was not prepared for that technical thing. We had to do what we call a spin of spectrum in order to secure Oman FM and Radio Gold, now not having those interference. So a good IT infrastructure is an imperative for national security. Today, tomorrow, national security is not about gunshots or about chieftaincy disputes. It goes beyond it. You are talking about the territorial integrity of our country. Mr. Speaker, what is used, and I hope you give me some time, take money laundering and what the money back can do to a democracy if you don't use national security to control it. The remitter of money can only be checked through an IT platform. So even if you want to fight corruption in this country, we must improve our IT work. Every money transaction on an IT is recorded. It's not like you're typing where you go and change it and print it out. Therefore, the Bureau of National Communication must be a dedicated agency of national security to provide and facilitate the work of national security. And Mr. Speaker, maybe we can demonstrate it even in this room. The President is coming here, or the Minister for National Security is here, and we have a dedicated BNC network, me and you pledge to build for this country. Anybody making a conversation which interferes with the President network, he will be cut off. Technically, at that time, the President communication takes precedence and priority over every other person. Therefore, to have a Bureau of National Communication, not new, it's already there. And I'm giving you the example that we had to work in order to farm up a dedicated spectrum. Those young men and women who follow the President and they call them Gota men, the Gota, that's the BNC. It's what we built. Like I said, I inherited it from you and other ministers. The Bureau of National Communication, we established what we call the Gota system.
For the Minister for National Security.
Absolutely. And Mr. Speaker, it's appropriate that he is there. You see, this country, we must respect people who make dedicated service to this country. Honorable Kandapa, not here. And to our colleagues who are ministers, let us not be behaving as if we are there forever. And Mr. Speaker, I'll beg you to make this comment. One day, we're passing the Ghana Exim Bill here. The Honorable Setekwe was sitting by me. I had to tell him, Honorable Setekwe, don't personalize legislation. You can check the record. You were there. I said, don't personalize legislation. So let's not personalize legislation. Somebody at defense tomorrow will be there tomorrow, and somebody at interior will be there tomorrow, or Honorable will be perpetuity the Minister for National Security. Tomorrow it could be the almighty majority leader and wanting to bow out with all knowledge and experience. But I'm just saying, let's not personalize legislation. He's seen it all. He's been Minister for Defense. He's been Minister for Interior. What is it if he wants to be a coordinate? They must be meeting. And Mr. Speaker, how I wish that you spared me that time. And my colleague, Honorable Yunusa Hussein, will bear me out. National security, you need it. In my last days as Minister for Employment, some demonstrators had to converge at Flagstaff House wanting to have engagement with the President. Under that circumstance, it can turn nasty. It can turn nasty. You don't want that situation. So, Mr. Speaker, when the committee says, and I'm backward, I'm reading page 7, in regards to Article 85 of 1992. Mr. Speaker, what does Article 85 say? And with your indulgence, I speak to it and I conclude. It states, and I quote, no agency, established or other organization concerned with national security shall be established except as provided for under this Constitution. Article 93 provides that Parliament can pass any legislation, save when the legislation we pass is inconsistent with the Constitution, then we throw it out at the Supreme Court and void. So the power to legislate is ours, and I think that we seize the opportunity. I hope that my colleague leader, I'm not supposed to share those confidences. When they came, that this bill was an urgent bill, I walked to him as a leader, security and intelligence agencies. In lightness, he said, Harun, there are some issues we are working on to resolve without making full disclosures. That is why he shared with me. So that is why we couldn't take it as an urgent bill. I trust that he and the President and others have resolved those issues. But Mr. Speaker, we need a national security minister. Look at how much money we appropriate for them yearly. Then we are told that because it's national security, they cannot ask questions. The national security coordinator come here to answer questions. If matters happen at Ayawasu Wagon, or in Charpene, or in Wulesi, who will we call to account to this house? That is why you need a superintendent minister who does not only advise the President, but answerable to Parliament as a requirement. But Mr. Speaker, I do agree that we should not create duplication and synergy that undermine the authority of the Minister for Defense or the Minister for Interior. But their theft is cut out. It is only Nigeria in West Africa as of today which has no national security. Mr. Speaker, I say so because one of my colleagues knows. The Ivorian National Security Minister said no, sir. He's my personal friend, Bakayoko. Minister for National Security for the Ivory Coast. When I'm in Abidjan, I pray in his house. So it is not new. But when you say coordinator, you know the coordinators, Commissioner Kwanson, through Francis Poku, through Totobi Kwachi, we have had coordinators. How accountable have they been, both to the president and to parliament? That limitation must be cured with this bill. That limitation. So we've been there before. When the security coordinator, like I said, I'm Minister for Employment. There was a day an event happened. National Security was not even aware that they were raiding the president's office because we have not provided them with the needed architecture. All President Mahama at the time witnessed was that Flagstaff House was flooded. And they were calling me. I was then in Tamale. We had to rush out. So, Mr. Speaker, a national security system for Ghana and its movement is an imperative. And we must define roles, both the minister to coordinate with his colleagues, the Minister for Defense and Interior, we must do as Parliament. But a national security coordinator must be accountable to the minister, not the president. He must follow through a unity of command or hierarchy. He must follow through a unity of command. And Mr. Speaker, elsewhere, even the governor of the Bank of Ghana, the Minister for Employment, will sit in national security for other related purposes. So in principle, Mr. I support it, and I think that they should even do more. The threat of the world today is not even about food security. Because the most dangerous thing in the world today is this telephone. And we only can do so if we... I should commend OCT and the ministry for involving chiefs and opinion leaders. And we can do more. And Mr. Speaker, I wish that I could say more. When the president was determined to resolve that bank dispute, I recall Minister for National Security, at some point, when there were major notices, we had to rely on communication because we should know at what, and that's why the BNC is important. At the point, I had to call you, Minister, and say that no, this event has suffered as a result of this activity. Absolutely. So, Mr. Speaker, I wholly support it. And as I said, my friend, the Honorable Kennedy Ajapon, is in the House. BNC is already an integral part of national security. And I'm saying on authority, few years between 2009 and 2012, when Oman FM, Radio Gold, and Glow were suffering the interruption of we found them out in order to give him security of business and others. So, Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly support this bill, but we should coordinate it. If we make a security coordinator too powerful, Honourable Majority Leader, you've been there before, the days of Honourable Francis Poku, we to Honourable Tobi Kwachi, and then they go and create those clusters around the president. Even when you majority leader wants to have, they say national security reason. What national security reason? We must have a minister who is accountable to us, who is answerable to us, and a coordinator who works to him as the head of the technical and administrative agency. We'll create the coordinator, but it should be a head. Mr. Speaker, with this comment, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Those who are worried about you have nothing to worry about. So long as we can spell shoe or shine, we can spell sh. Honorable Majority Leader.
Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to make a few comments on the report of the Committee on Defense and Interior in respect of the Security and Intelligence Agencies Bill 20. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution enjoins the people of this country to establish a framework of government that would protect and preserve the unity of our nation. Speaker, it is a reason why, given the circumstances of these times, it has become imperative that a new powerful law be passed to safeguard the unity, peace, and stability of our country. The Speaker, when the bill came, I had to present the bill on behalf of the Minister for National Security, who was not available in Accra that day. So I presented the document to Parliament. Upon that, you referred the document to the Committee on Defense and Interior. They met and determined, in line with Article 106(13), that the bill is of an urgent nature, and accordingly indicated that the regular processes and procedures must. Mr. Speaker, however, given the importance of the bill, the committee, even after making that determination and reporting to us, decided to tarry, to have further engagement with the relevant stakeholders. Speaker, I'm aware that the committee on 2 different occasions has had to move into a sanctuary to have some consultations with major stakeholders in the country, and indeed practitioners as well. The major issue relates to Article 92, as the Minority Leader has read out to us, the power of Parliament to pass enactments or make legislation. The Speaker, we all do appreciate the importance of the Bureau of National Communication as the bill proposals that we fashion out. And bullet 6.3 of the committee's report, the Bureau of Communications operates as a department under the Ministry of National Security with responsibility for signal intelligence and information assurance. These functions are critical to the effective and efficient discharge of the mandate of the Ministry of National Security. The committee noted that the bill seeks to create the BNC as an additional agency aimed at addressing emerging cyber security threats in the wake of global terrorism. It is therefore the considered view of members of the committee that the object of creating the BNC as an intelligence agency would pose some constitutional challenges in regards to Article 85 of the 1992 Constitution. Mr. Speaker, Article 85 of the Constitution provides no agency, establishment, or other organization concerned with national security shall be established, except as provided for under this Constitution. What does the Constitution provide? This Constitution provides that Parliament it is that can, by resorting to the process of legislation, create any such agency. The Speaker, so Parliament indeed can create the agency. Parliament can establish any organization concerned with national security as Parliament deems fit. Mr. Speaker, the little problem that we have is whether or not, and indeed the Bureau of National Communication cannot continue to operate as a department. It must be elevated to a certain level, be elevated to the level of an agency. Now, if you do that, the issue is whether the bill that is before us can be used to create that agency, or whether we need an enabling to establish that agency. Because recognizably, the role of such a unit is of paramountcy to the security and peace in this country. How to handle it, the Speaker, is where we have some difficulties. The Speaker, horizontal movement does not necessarily involve dancing. My colleague, the member for West is saying that I'm dancing. I'm not dancing. I'm demonstrating the difficulties that have ensued from this. But Mr. Speaker, having said that, this bill, this country, we have passed, this parliament, I should say, we have passed some in respect of the narcotics control. The Narcotics Control Board operates within the ambit of national security. Yoko, the Speaker, so even the anti-money laundering bill that we passed, it has national security implications. So they could fit Article 85. And if the national security minister wants to bring them on board, or should I say the National Security Council wants to bring them on board, they can do that because you have created them already. So they will fit into Article 85. In respect of the Bureau for Communication, important as it is, the question is, do we need to create that by a piece of legislation? Or is it the case that we can fuse it into this? We can fit into the the Security Intelligence Agencies bill, and to have been created. That is the issue. That is the issue. Because, Mr. Speaker, if you are creating an agency, the structure that is required for the creation of the agency cannot be contained in the Security and Intelligence Agencies bill. I think that's the hurdle that we must scale. That's the hurdle that we must scale. If the House believes that if we do that, it will not offend anything, let the House decide. If, however, we believe that if you have to establish it with the necessary structures, we need an act of parliament so to do, the Speaker, then my view would then be that let's establish it and then get it into the Security and Intelligence Agencies Act. In other words, when we have done so, then we can amend this appropriately. So there are two ways of dealing with it. Which way is better for us as a House? Do we adjunct it to this bill and deem it as having been established? Yes. Or is it the case that we should establish it by one piece of legislation? Where we are. So, Mr. Speaker, nobody is underestimating the importance of cybercrime. For which reason we need the Bureau of National Communications. Where to situate it is what has become of a challenge for all of us. So, Mr. Speaker, let's think through, and if it is considered that we should establish a Bureau for National Communication by Parliament, so be it. Mr. Speaker, let me say that I've had serious consultations with many security experts. Opinion is divided. About 70% of them think that, no, we need to establish the Bureau of National Communication if we want it to the level of an agency. We need to establish it by an act of parliament. About 30% of them also think that we can situate it within the ambit of this. So, Mr. Speaker, let's think through what is appropriate for this country. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the space you have accorded me.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether the Honourable Minister is inclined towards making a short response.
Mr. Speaker, I must thank honorable members for the very lively debate, and in particular for very useful comments and observations that have been made. I just want to use this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to comment that we have not made any attempt to change functions nor the composition of the National Security Council as captured in the Constitution. And if the report gives any such impression, that, Mr. Speaker, is not the case. I look forward to the continuing support of honorable members to this very, very important piece of legislation as we go through the process of passing it. Again, I want to thank honorable member, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, at the conclusion of the debate, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
And relating to the National Security Council, to provide for the establishment of regional and district security councils, to specify the agencies responsible for the security of the state, and to provide for related matters.
The Security and Intelligence Agencies Bill 2020 is duly read a second time. Honorable, what can we do till 3 o'clock?
Mr. Speaker, we can deal with item listed as 12.
Item listed 12.
12, yes.
Honorable members, procedural motion.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
The report that will be presented covers 3 agreements, and so we'll move the procedural motions 12, 15, and 18 together. 12, 15, and 18 procedural motions.
Thank you.
And the substantive motions will be 13, 16, and 19.
The substantive will be
13, 16, and 19.
13, 16, 19.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the procedural motions listed as items 12, 15, and 18 on today's order paper. I so move.
Thank you very much. Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
The motion has been duly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Chairman, you may now 13, 16, and 19 motions.
Yes. I beg to move that the motions listed as items 13, 16, and 19 on today's order paper be taken now. Mr. Speaker, what we have before us is 1, a loan agreement for an amount of 520 million euros. And a second loan agreement of 75.6 million euros to finance the construction of the Western Railway line on Star Gauge from Takoradi Port to Huni Valley. And then a request for the waiver of taxes and duties amounting to 72.2 million euros on the same project. Mr. Speaker, that and conditions of the EKN facility and the commercial loan are given in paragraph 4 of the report. The tax waiver amounting to 72.2 euros has been assessed and attached to this report. The Speaker, the committee therefore recommends to the House to adopt resolution the 2 loan agreements and the request for the waiver of taxes and duties. Respectfully submitted, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chairman, you're done? Thank you very much. I'm glad you are very mindful. Yes, Honorable Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to second the motion. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, I wish to state that we have indeed looked at terms and conditions of the loan agreement and can say that indeed the terms and conditions are fairly attractive. Mr. Speaker, apart from the fact that I'm particularly about the amount of payment we pay as insurance premium, considering the fact that of the amount of about 523 million euros, we are paying an insurance premium of approximately 7.37% flat on that facility. So again, Mr. Speaker, again on the commercial facility of about 23 million euros, there was no insurance premium on that facility. So, Speaker, clearly the terms are something that we can make do. And, Speaker, I also want to caution that there's the need for us to be looking at our debt sustainability analysis, considering the amount of money that we have present. Speaker, clearly this particular project constitutes approximately 600 million euros. And then if we are to add the tax exemption to the project, then we are looking something in the region of 672 million euros. Mr. Speaker, I believe that we should subject this for value for money analysis, and I'm particularly happy that if you are to look at the loan agreement, money is indeed a condition precedent. Mr. Speaker, I will only urge the Ministry of Finance to show that the value for money is being done, and in line with what we all expect that it should be done, and to ensure that this project becomes something that will see the light of the day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Shall I put a question? Is that Honorable, you may make a
Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much for the opportunity to contribute to.
But please be brief.
Mr. Speaker,
there have been developments before you came to the House.
Mr. Speaker, I will be very brief. Mr. Speaker, this loan is to support the construction of the railway line from the to Kumasi. Sections of Mr. Speaker, this is the largest of investment going into railway from independence. Mr. Speaker, the Kumasi-Takoradi rail line is a very important part of a railway network, and for which reason this loan is being sought to continue from Eshiem to Takwa and onwardly to Dunkwa. Mr. Speaker, the project is a standard gauge railway investment, and it is in conformity with the West African policy of constructing standard gauge lines within the sub-region. Mr. Speaker, the line is where we are mining projects, and it connects to the port of Takoradi. Mr. Speaker, indeed, the construction did not consider commuting up to Takoradi, a port, but this reconstruction and redesign will take us to Takoradi to ease congestion and the difficulty in cutting the minerals from the production areas into the port. Mr. Speaker, this also will free our road networks from the congestion that the use of the roads bring to the commuters on the road networks. Mr. Speaker, having said all that, I think this one will also support only the standard gauge, but also the management services and also the construction of the bylines onto the Wasu line. And so, in all, this is a commercial project that will also improve our productivity within the sub-region, and in fact, in particular, within the regions where this train will compete. So, Mr. Speaker, in short, I crave the judges of the House support this motion for the development of railway line from Takoradi to Kumasi, sections of it. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the
Honourable Minister for your clarity and brevity. I'll put a question. All those in favour of the motions numbered 13, 16, and 19 say aye. Against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is duly carried. Honourable Minister, you may move the motion 417 and 20 for the adoption of the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the resolutions captured as item 14, 17, and 20 on pages 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 of the order paper be adopted now. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, all those in favour of the adoption of the resolutions 14, 16, and 20 say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The resolutions are accordingly adopted by this Honourable House. Honourable members, we'll move back to item listed 6, presentation and first readings. We now have the relevant copies. So item 6A, Minister for Health, Deputy Minister, you may present.
Act to establish a national blood service and to provide for related matters.
The bill is duly presented and read the first time, and it is referred to the Health for consideration and report. 6B, Honourable Minister.
An act to establish a national ambulance service to provide for the effective administration and management of emergency care services and to provide for related matters.
The bill is duly read and read the first time and is referred to the Committee on Health for consideration and report. Honourable members, the time is 10 minutes to 3 o'clock. I'll close the House for us to reassemble tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the forenoon. You've seen I'm the only person who have sat through it for today. The House is adjourned accordingly. Thank you very much.
Election, no,